Here we are with part 2 of our communication chapter in the Human Relations course. And the topics for this quick video is to understand the communication styles that we have, and we will also talk about listening and listening styles. And a couple more things actually. So, when we're talking about the verbal and written communication strategies that we have, we can say that we have 4 different types of communication styles. And I want to preface this by saying no person is one style all the time. You probably have a dominant style, how you communicate most of the time, but that doesn't mean in 100% of the situations this is how you are expressing, communicating, relating, being analytical, etc. It depends a lot on the situation and what is required there. What we can say though is that it is very important that we communicate well. There is so much miscommunication in organizations that occurs between people and among people. And if we can reduce some of these miscommunications, we will be happier and the organization will be better off. And the good news is that we can become better at communicating. We can all try to improve our communication so that others will understand us better. And so with that, let's start by looking at these 4 communication styles, because that will help us understand our own communication style. So as you listen to these, think about which one might you be relating to more. Number 1 is the expressor. This is the person who gets super excited when they're speaking. They are also pretty emotional and in tune with their feelings. So they rely on hunches and they listen to their emotions. And that might be a weakness when we need data-driven decisions in organizations. So that we need to look at the objective numbers, we need to use logic. And so being emotional or listening to our emotions in that instance might make it a little bit trickier. The second communication style is called a driver. This is a person who's very strong in their viewpoint. They are decisive. They like things their own way and they're not afraid to speak up or take charge or tell others what they want or what they like. So they're driving that communication, maybe sometimes over other people. Number 3 is the relator. This is the person that prefers to have a positive attention from others onto themselves. They want to make sure that other people see them, hear them, care about them, and so they want to be regarded warmly. And so these are people that value friendships. So finding common connections with them and common touch points is a good way to create a relationship with somebody who is a relator. Number 4 is analytical. And this is the person that seeks data. They ask a lot of questions and they are very methodical in the way that they are processing information and wanting to make decisions and communicating. They like structure and time to process thinking. So which one of these 4 do you think you are? In addition to those 4 personality communication styles, if you will, we also have 3 other communication styles. And this is more of a general communication style in how you are in a certain situation. Number 1 is passive. A passive communicator is one where the person puts the rights of other people over their own. So a communication style where the person puts the rights of other people over their own. And so they are just passively sitting there. The passive communicator tend to be apologetic and they sound tentative when they speak. So they whisper and they almost apologize. And they do not like to speak up if they feel that they have been wronged. So that's not a good space to be because you're not speaking up for yourself. On the very other end of the spectrum, you have the aggressive communicator. And this is the person who is anything but passive. They drive over other people. They stand up for their own rights, but they're probably violating the rights of other people in the process. So they communicate in a way that makes the rest of the people around them hear that they don't care about me, they don't care about my feelings or my ideas. So the aggressive communicator cares about themselves, and they come across as not caring about others. Lastly is the assertive communicator. This is in the middle between passive and aggressive. And this is the person that respects the rights of themselves and the people around them. So they are direct, they say what they think, but they do so politely. They're not insulting, they're not offensive, but they are standing up for their own rights, and they're making sure the rights of other people are not affected. So ideally, we want to be assertive communicators. Remember, people cannot read our mind, right? So we have to speak up and say what we think. We also have the passive-aggressive communicator, right? We all have one of those. Maybe sometimes we are that person who's a little bit of passive-aggressive. So this is a person that tends to be passive at first. They don't say anything, they're quiet, they let other people tell them what they think, and they don't stand up for themselves. Then they get annoyed and angry, so they come out with snide remarks or negative comments, and they are aggressive. So first they are quiet, and then they are aggressive. And so this person is expressing those negative feelings that they are harboring in an indirect way, instead of being assertive and speaking up and saying, thank you so much, but that doesn't work for me. This is what would work for me, right? So they're not constructive in the way they communicate. So if you are dealing with somebody who is passive aggressive, you want to be direct with them. Tell the person that they need to be communicating with you, or maybe we shouldn't be communicating at all. The trick here is really to be direct and kind and polite. Be assertive. Don't allow them to play the victim, because then they might actually try to take advantage. So we want to be direct, and we want to make sure that the communication issue gets solved. Listening, so important. Let's listen. So there are 3 listening styles. The first one is competitive, the second is passive, and the third and best one is active. So the competitive or combative listening style. This is a type of listening when we are focused on sharing our own point of view instead of listening to somebody else. So you are not there to hear what the other person is saying. You're there to formulate your own ideas and thoughts and comments, and to push them onto the other person. So no listening is really happening here. The passive listening, again, is on the opposite side of the spectrum. Here we are taking in information. We are interested in hearing what the other person is saying. We assume we hear them. We assume we understand them. But we are not checking to make sure that that is true. However, that happens in the active listening, which is the third type of listening. So in active listening, we are interested in what the other person is saying, and we also check to make sure that we are understanding them correctly. So we restate, we paraphrase. So what I hear you saying is ABC. Is that correct? What that means to me is 1, 2, 3. So we paraphrase, we restate, and then we verify that our understanding is correct. And so this feedback process, where we are making sure we are understanding them correctly, this is what is the difference between passive listening in number 2 and active listening. And so this is really the way we want to be listening. So active listening takes place in 4 phases. The first phase is sensing. So here we're taking in information, right? We are hearing, we are seeing if the person is there with us. So we are seeing body language, we are seeing their face. So we are receiving these verbal and non-verbal aspects of the message. We're hearing the words, the intonation of the voice, the speed of the voice, the frequency of certain words, and we are paying attention to the body language, the facial, the smile, the non-smile, etc. So we are sensing. Now that we have sensed and been taking in that information, we are starting to interpret it, meaning we are actually placing that message in a meaningful context. What is going on here? Where are we? What is this person trying to say, right? So we are trying to, or starting to interpret the message. And then after interpretation, now we're placing a value on it. We are starting to actually evaluate it here in the third phase. So the receiver, that's you if you're listening, the receiver is sorting fact from opinion. We are figuring out what the message is. What is objective, what is emotions, what is accurate, what is not accurate. And so here clearly we have both emotional components and logical, because every person brings some emotion to the conversation. And so we're trying to figure out and evaluate the message. And then in the fourth phase, we respond. So this is the feedback to the sender, the person who gave you the message, on how well the message was understood. And clearly you're not standing there saying, yes, Billy, this is how I understood it, 1, 2, 3, right? Your feedback might be through your responses, through your nonverbal behavior, through paraphrasing or not paraphrasing, through getting angry or not getting angry, etc. So the feedback can come in any number of ways, right? But you are responding to the sender. So that is the active listening 4 phases: sensing, interpreting, evaluating, responding. All right. Lastly, in this video, the 4 C's of written communication: complete, concise, correct, and clear. And so the focus here is on writing emails, which is most of our writing in organizations today. Firstly, clearly you want to make sure that the email is complete. All the facts need to be included. Make sure you have answered all the questions. Make sure the entire email is complete, right? So when I get emails from students, which I do a lot, the students forget or fail to tell me what class they are in, their name, what their question actually is. So a lot of the time when we write emails, we just write what's top of our mind and we have full information in our heads. But you need to take all of that information and put it in the email, because the receiver is not in your head. So the receiver needs to have the information fully in the email. Second, it needs to be concise. So actually, even though it's just an email, quote unquote, you should read through it a few times. You should make sure that you have read it to make sure that it's comprehensive but concise. Reduce extra words, reduce the length of the email, make sure it's concise while comprehensive. And if it's too long, honestly, maybe you should just have a personal conversation. The email should also be it should be correct here in the third C. Check the email completely for grammar, spelling. It should have a greeting, hello. It should have a body with some text in it, and it should have closing. Best regards, Jessica. We don't always do it that way, especially when we ping pong emails back and forth with somebody you know really, really well. But for proper email communication, this is how we should do it. Check the email fully for grammar, spelling, greet the person, be comprehensive but concise in the body, and close the email off. And then clearly, right, number 4, is your writing easy to understand? Does it flow well, right? So again, even though it's a simple thing as such an email, make sure that the receiver understands it and that it's easy for them. So your job in writing an email is to make sure it's easy for the receiver. Our last slide here is just a few additional email tips. The first one is to make sure that you have something in the subject line. It should be descriptive and it should address what's in the email. You should use upper and lowercase letters. Even though we all text, and we all tend to not do that when we're texting each other. We should use upper lowercase letters. We should avoid shortening words. It's really not a text. An email is not a text, and we should not treat it as such. We should not use reply all unless we need to. Everybody gets too many emails as it is. And if the email is not relevant for them, just leave them off. Sign your email, put your name there, say have a great day. And then, of course, reread the message to make sure the message is clear. And if you are under the influence of emotions, then wait a bit, right? Write the email, put it in your draft folder, or write it in a Word document even, or just keep it in your head. Wait 24 hours before sending off an angry email. Remember what the E in email stands for? It stands for evidence, right? And it will stay there forever. So use the 24-hour rule. And also a good tip is to not forward jokes, pictures, videos, etc. Use it professionally. So in summary, we have 4 main types of communication styles. We have the expressor, the driver, the relator, and the analytical person. Understand yours and you will communicate better. And also this helps you understand other people. We can communicate passively, aggressively, or passive-aggressively. None of those are healthy ways of communicating. Being assertive, on the other hand, really respects your own rights and the rights of other people. Listening is a very important part of communication. You can listen actively, competitively, or passively. And again, the active listening is the best one because that happens when we are interested in what the other person says. And also we're checking with them to make sure that we understand what they're saying. So we have a feedback loop. When you send emails, follow the 4 C's. Make sure your email is complete, concise, correct, and clear. That's it for today. Thank you so much. See you next time.